Functional medicine is gaining popularity, but with that comes a lot of conflicting perspectives. Whether you're a patient or a provider, our goal is to bring clarity and share practical ways functional medicine can actually be implemented. This podcast is for education only, not medical advice. Let's dive into this week's episode of Functional Medicine in Real Life.
Welcome back to the podcast. Today's episode's a little bit different. We are going to have more of a fireside chat type vibe, as we are going to say, as functional medicine providers, the quiet part out loud. So, we polled a few other functional medicine providers, integrative medicine providers, natural providers about what do you wish you could say to your patients but can't. Not because we don't care, not because we don't love you, but because we're trying to filter things and make them palatable for you. But we kind of want to spin that on if you really want to know the down and dirty, listen to this. If you're easily offended, maybe skip to the next one. This is Sarah. I'm Amy. Let's get started.
So, as Amy said, we polled several functional medicine providers and other kind of natural providers that we know. And this kind of collectively is what the top things that we found. Also, as you're listening to these, kind of check yourself and think like this might be part of why you might not be getting better or why you might have certain obstacles to healing.
Hmm.
So kind of the first one that we saw was we can't want it more than you do.
Yeah. Yeah.
And so I don't know, do you see that a lot, Amy, or?
Yeah, I mean, whenever I read this one, I thought, "Oh, that's a good one," because commonly this is the patient who they come in, they have all these issues, and my gosh, what we want is to see patients get better. Everyone likes to be good at their job. So if we feel like we don't consistently have results, that wears on us just as much as it wears on the patient. But if we see we're excited, here's what we need to do, and then you come back 2 months later and you're like, well, a week into it, I just it's just so much, and then we went on vacation and never got back on the routine. But then there's also kind of that vibe you get from them, almost like functional medicine's not working, you know. And what I say is, I mean, totally get that. Like, I can't want it more than you want it.
Hmm. Yeah. And I think just we're human too. And so then we take that as like a person, like not a personal attack, but we take it personally of like, oh, I'm not doing enough or
Mhm.
I'm not motivating
Mhm.
this patient enough or like it's a flaw because like that's when naturally I will kind of say,
Yeah.
oh, what am I not doing?
Right.
When reality is like we can educate you, we can give you the tools, we can give you the steps, but ultimately you have to implement it.
Right. And, like if I take my car into the mechanic and there's a sound, it is 100% the mechanic's job to figure out what that sound is,
Hmm.
right? But this is you're bringing your body to me.
Hmm.
It's not that you can just come in and check in every couple of months and I'm going to make this little tweak. And all you have to do is take that supplement and everything's going to get better.
Hmm.
So just,
Oftentimes, yeah.
yeah, it's a realistic expectation that you're going to get out of it what you put into it.
Right. Yeah. And I think, you know, oftentimes patients do think they want it.
Hmm.
Sometimes,
Hmm.
and then sometimes when they see, okay, wait, this is what I'm gonna have to do, then they might kind of be like, oh, maybe I'm not ready for
Yeah.
that. And that's totally fine.
Yeah.
I think that's kind of where we come in and like, okay, let's meet you where you're at.
Right.
What can you handle?
That's what I was gonna say, like, a message to the provider is, "Okay, but what did you ask the patient to do? Did we start too big?" And I've done that before. Like, you start the patient off thinking that they're gonna be as excited about it as you are, then they come back like, "It was just too much, doc." I'm like, "Okay, so let's dial it back. Let's start with 1 or 2 very important things, and let's focus on just eating 3 times a day. I don't even care what you eat. Let's just eat 3 times a day." So, breaking it down to more palatable bites, a lot of times, that kinda helps us check ourselves a little bit too.
Right. And the other big one was supplements can't fix a life that's draining you,
Mhm. Yeah.
So patients will come in and they'll have different complaints and things like that. And they're like, okay, what can I take? What can I take to fix this? What can
Mhm.
I help? What can I take to, help me sleep or, you know,
Yeah.
improve my energy levels? And it's like, well, if you're not committed to getting more than 5 hours of sleep
Mhm.
or eating more or things like that.
Right. No, yeah, I get that. And same thing, this is a conversation I have with patients is, and Sarah and I say this all the time, we don't want to not take prescription medications just for sake of saying that we don't take prescription medications
Hmm.
whenever it translates into impairing our quality of life.
Mhm.
So if you are taking 5-HTP or an SSRI,
Right.
a supplement versus a prescription medication, they're kind of shooting for the same end goal. One
Mhm.
you can just buy from Amazon and one you have to get a prescription for.
Mhm.
At the end of the day, in functional medicine, our goal is how to get you the best quality of life so that you can live the life that you want.
Right.
If you occasionally take a prescription because your life is chaos, maybe that's the answer for you.
Right.
But when patients email you and say, like, hey, I've got this crazy life thing going on, do you have any supplements that you recommend? That's
Mhm.
tough. It's
Yeah.
really tough.
Yeah. And that's the thing is like everything things happen,
Hmm.
things happen and there are stressors and things like that. But if there is a continual stressor that needs to be addressed and maybe tweaked or removed and that kind of thing, like we can't out supplement that,
Right.
you know?
And please also know, Sarah and I are not preaching from a high horse.
Yes. Yeah.
We are also real people with our natural stressors and our, induced stressors that we also get humbled by. So,
Our self-inflicted
hmm
stressors.
hmm
Yeah.
hmm
Yeah. Again, providers sometimes aren't great patients. And so, and
yeah,
we self-diagnose ourselves too. And,
uh huh, uh huh.
but that's okay because we're still realistic and we're like, okay, all right, I'm
I
doing this
think
to myself.
we also have each other to ground us
Hmm.
sometimes, which is everyone needs that.
Yeah.
Okay, the next one is uh, normal isn't feeling 100% every day. So, this
Hmm.
is a good one. I
Hmm.
think a lot of times we think that we're supposed to feel great every day. I always like to relate things back to other animals. If you have any indoor animals, because you just see your indoor animals more than you see outdoor animals, like indoor dogs or cats, they're not they're not thriving every day. Sometimes they sleep a lot. They
Hmm.
sleep a lot, and if you take them on vacation or if you take them camping, they make every step you make, but when you come home, they're crashed for 2 or 3 days.
Hmm.
We don't let ourselves do that,
Right.
So, sometimes people will hyper focus on, "Well, I was feeling good, then I had a day where I just was so tired and I had a hard time getting out of bed. What
Hmm.
should I do about that?"
Yeah.
Probably stay in bed for a little bit.
Right. You're not going to feel 100% every single
Mhm.
day and you're not going to be productive as you are every single day. And the other thing is as women, our hormones are
Yeah,
constantly fluctuating and during certain phases of our cycle, we have to be realistic about
absolutely.
what we're doing. And Amy's always great at explaining all of that. So I'll let you explain
Or
it.
you're just literally a different person hormonally each week of your cycle.
Hmm.
So now what's not normal for period issues is being debilitated and in bed, raging out, having breakdowns, wanting to quit your job. Like those things aren't normal. But what is normal is having less motivation, having less drive, wanting to just sit and watch TV a little bit more. My brain, I feel like the first 2 weeks, I am a rock star. I have a great brain. But then that week before my period, sometimes I feel like I can't put two sentences together sometimes. So
Hmm.
some degree of that is going to be normal. You can't expect to be the same performing person the week before your period versus where you are 2 weeks in.
Yeah. And I think this goes to like listening to your body
Hmm.
and giving yourself permission to rest. I think that's something that I've always struggled with. And I think I'm getting a little bit better about it of like not feeling guilty whenever my body is saying,
Yeah.
like, you need to slow down, you need to
Hmm.
lay down for a little bit. Just like, yeah, the dishes are in the sink, the laundry's all over the place, the house is a mess, but your body's screaming at you
Yeah.
to rest and lay down. And
Yeah.
when you do rest for 30 minutes, you're probably going to be a lot more effective and efficient
Hmm.
than if you were to try to make yourself push through.
Right. And in those moments of rest, you either become more comfortable with yourself or you're having a kid chill with you or a
Hmm.
spouse chill with you or a dog chill with you. And those things are very healing in themselves too,
Right.
which you would have missed out on if you were just doing all the dishes.
Right. Yeah. And so then the next one was stop hyperfixating on each and
Mhm.
every symptom
Mhm.
because this causes your nervous system to feel stuck in that state of fight or flight.
Yeah, that's a good one too. I think of this as like scanning for threats.
Yeah.
A little bit too. So some people's nervous systems are already like that, where you walk into a room and you scan for threats, which that's that fight or flight. And where we're striving to be most of the time is rest, digest, reproduce, relax. So if we're scanning for threats, whether it's like, okay, I just spent all this money on these supplements and I've started taking these every day and I still have a little headache. But if you're scanning for that every day, that's likely what's holding you back.
Hmm. Yeah. And I think that too can go to like diet.
Mhm.
Like, so a lot of times in functional medicine, people are like, "Oh, I'm on an anti-inflammatory diet because I have to fix this
Oh,
inflammation
that's a
and I
good
have to,
one.
all
Yeah.
this kind of stuff." And they're hyper focusing on every single thing that they put in their body. So really, they're creating that fight or flight, which is then creating even more gut
Yeah.
inflammation. So how much are you actually digesting that food
Mhm.
and absorbing that food when you're in that fight or flight state? And even personally, I kind of dealt with that. So whenever I had reactivated Epstein-Barr, I was gluten-free, dairy-free. I was having a hard time gaining weight and that kind of thing. And finally, I got to the point to where I was like, you know what? I'm craving cheese and I'm craving Greek yogurt.
Yeah.
And yeah, that has dairy in it, but I I'm gonna eat it.
Mhm.
And I just kind of started eating intuitively
Yeah.
of like what my body was telling me it needed. And that's kind of when I finally started to feel better
Yeah.
and gain weight and start to heal because also, I probably wasn't fueling my body enough too,
Well,
which
and
we
I
see a
think
lot.
we've all been through that. I did it too when I first started doing functional medicine. I basically got into like an orthorexic type situation, which is obsession with eating healthy.
Mhm.
But then we all had those times where you feel snacky or your body's hungry and you open the pantry and you're like, "Ugh,
Yeah.
everything in here has to be cooked."
Right.
Or there's nothing in here and you go to the fridge and like, all this has to be chopped, sauteed, seasoned. And so what do you end up doing? Nothing.
Right.
When your body was craving something, you told it, sorry, there's no food.
Right.
I actually had a patient, I mean, this happens constantly, but I just had it happen this week, so it's fresh on my brain. A lady who kind of got herself in a situation. Of course, now she's perimenopausal, menopausal, which is when your nervous system really is like, screw you, lady. We
Mhm.
out from a
Mhm.
metabolism standpoint. Uh, she was going home for lunch every day, but she only had a 30-minute lunch. So she'd get home and then she would just like do laundry and things because she really wanted food to be whole food.
Mhm.
So she didn't have time in her 30-minute lunch to do a whole food lunch. So she just wasn't having lunch. So she was having like a tiny breakfast, not really any lunch, and having a regular dinner. Years and years of that have now come back to bite her in the butt, especially in perimenopause and menopause when it comes to metabolism. But I had recommend like factor meals or like microwave meals. And she's like, oh my gosh, I just can't. Like, that's just not, basically, she didn't say this, but like, that's not perfect food, is what she
Mhm.
was saying. I'm like,
Mhm.
but what have you been doing?
Mhm.
How is it serving you?
Right.
So she just couldn't believe that I ate like a microwave meal at lunch. Like, no, it's not a lean cuisine because I
Right.
want meat and potatoes, right?
Right.
But yeah, relaxing a little bit on those super fine details.
Right. Because, I think too, like mentally, what we are rejecting, our body also kind of rejects. You know what I
Hmm.
mean? Like our
Yeah.
mind, like our body tries to do what our mind tells it to do.
Hmm.
So I mean, I don't know. I'm sure there's no studies on this, but I think absorption wise, you probably absorb less of something that you're like, you know, um, I can't eat this because it's got, whatever, it's processed or whatever.
Yeah. Well, especially if it gave you anxiety and your motility increased and then you had diarrhea, you definitely didn't.
Right.
You definitely didn't absorb it.
Right.
The other thing is I think of is from a hormonal standpoint when we're working on periods with patients, and then they'll message me and say, "Hey, I'm only on day 17 and I just had 2 days of spotting. Why did that happen?" We really have to look at things, zoom out. We
Mhm.
have to look at things in like a 3 to 4 month
Right.
time frame, not at every single day. Why did this happen this day?
Mhm.
That mentality will wear you out
Yes. Yep.
and
Yeah,
will
you have
will
to
keep
look
you
at kind
stuck.
of the patterns
Mhm.
of what's happening. Yeah, and I have some patients who are hyper focused on every little twinge or anything. And, so then you get 5 paragraphs long of all these things happening and you're like, I can't even decipher what you're trying to tell me. Like also
Yeah.
just, like let's not hyper focus on every single thing and like just try not to think about it
Mhm.
because I think sometimes again we read into it and then our body magnifies those symptoms and those symptoms get worse and then your system stays in that fight or flight mode and your
Yeah.
body can't heal when it's constantly being interrogated
Mhm.
and inspected and that kind of thing.
That's a good one. Because if we're seeing our patients, I mean, we like to see our patients every 2, maybe every 3 months, but whenever they're messaging between, like, that I've done this for 3 weeks, and here's all of my thoughts on it, and I was wondering about this, 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 and this. As a provider who wants to see improvements and cares about our patients, it's hard not to reflexively say, "Okay, stop this and start this." But then we really haven't given things a good amount of time to actually work.
Right.
So I try to really encourage patients to just give things a chance for at least 2 to 3 months before we try to make big changes, unless of course it makes you feel terrible, then that's different. But
Right.
making big changes between appointments a lot of times comes back to bite us in the butt because we just downward spiral.
Right. Yeah. I think it's hard, when patients have these really big, complicated questions in between visits.
Mhm.
It's really hard to
Mhm.
answer those like with a message because it's like, okay, I need more background information of like what's been going on stress wise, sleep wise. What are you eating? Like there's a lot of details that are very important
Right.
that a lot of times patients don't think about. And that's
Mhm.
fine because, it's you're living life and that kind of
And
thing.
it's not
But
their job to think about all those necessarily,
right.
you
But it
know?
just, but whenever, you ask those things and they're like, oh, well, yeah, like I, had a death of a loved one, or, or even if it's something
Mhm.
way less than that, it's like, okay, well, that makes a lot of sense,
Yeah. Yeah.
and then put those two and two together. And so it's just hard. But I think that rolls into the next one, which is like healing isn't linear
Yeah.
and it's not instant. It takes a
Mhm.
while. So a lot of times we're working on things and patterns that have been years in the making.
Mhm.
And so it's not going to be fixed overnight.
Yeah.
And then a lot of times as we're healing and we're working on things, sometimes you have some improvement and then there's a down and then
Right.
it goes up and then down. And especially too, if we're working on different emotional things, and you're also kind of doing starting some counseling and you have to work through some traumas and things like that. Like it can be a journey.
For sure. Yeah, and we'll see that too because patients will say, "Gosh, I'm so discouraged because I was doing so good for a few months and now I feel like I've taken a big step back." Like, but if we zoom out, is it possible that you used to have a problem every week and now you've had a problem after 2 months?
Right.
Is that actually an improvement
Right.
that I went from having a problem every week and now I'm having it every other month? That's actually a great improvement.
Right. Yeah. It's just hard because you don't it's hard to remember how bad
Mhm.
you were feeling,
Yeah.
and you see the down you see the symptoms more than you see the improvements.
And Sarah's told me this before when I was, hyperanalyzing all of my things. And she's like, I'm like, well, maybe it's because of this, this, or this. And I think you told me something like, uh, well, maybe there's not a cause for everything. Like maybe we don't have to add a reason for every single thing
Mhm.
that you feel. And that's absolutely correct. Sometimes we're just humans.
Right. Yep. Yep. And the other thing is that kind of already mentioned, like you get out what you put in, like healing is an investment.
Yeah.
And so, it is costly and it is time investment. It's
Hmm.
monetary investment. And we really try to work with you and on what your goal is and be cognizant of the financial investment and that kind of thing.
Yeah.
But I do think it's worth it. I mean, a lot of these things kind of sound like Debbie Downers and whatever, and like, oh my gosh, functional medicine. I don't know if I want to do that. I don't know if I can handle all that. But I do think it is very valuable because a lot of times we see people who are kind of in survival mode,
Yeah.
and they're
Hmm.
just living in survival mode until their body says like we can't anymore.
Hmm.
And then their body you know, shuts down
Yeah.
basically. And so whether or not you do a functional medicine or not, like something is going to happen and you will have to have an intervention, but it
Hmm.
may be conventional medicine intervention
Right.
because there's an autoimmune diagnosis or, hopefully not a cancer diagnosis, but you would have to have some sort of intervention.
Exactly. So you either do it whenever it's a check engine light or when your engine's rolling down the street behind you.
Right. Yeah.
Uh,
And the other one is we are not magicians and we might need
what?
other tools too. So we might have to so we do, for instance, we do like let therapy. We
Uh-huh.
recommend let therapy a
Yeah.
lot that helps with detoxification, things like that. Or maybe if we suspect that there's mold in your house,
Mhm.
then we'll recommend a
Yep.
mold inspector to come out.
We do a lot of airway referrals, like
Hmm.
airway consults and sleep studies and apneas.
Yeah.
If
So
you're,
again, it's really thinking outside the box. Like
mhm.
we are a medical detective, so we are looking at all of the things, all of the variables, and so that might mean that we have to call in an expert in their field.
And what I also like to think of as functional medicine is like the general contractor.
Hmm.
So I am responsible for you as a whole, but there might be some people I need to call on that are better at different things than I am.
Right. And this one I think is probably one of my favorites is like more information is not always better.
Mhm.
And so again, like sometimes people who are researchers and things like that, it's great, but sometimes, again, like if you're joining the Facebook groups and you're reading all the things, or oh, I follow this Instagram person and they say to do this, or this person says to do that.
Yeah,
It's great to hear those things and that kind of thing. But again, you have to remember that that's still stimulating your nervous
right.
system, and it's still making that nervous system be in that overdrive mode where it's hyperfixating
It
on
also
things.
ties into that, like, we've gotta give something a chance. So when people
Right.
come in with like, "Okay, but I read this," that is an excellent thing that we can put in our back pocket.
Right.
We'll stick that in the toolbox, so if we get stuck, we know that we can go back to that, but let's
Hmm.
stick with one thing that I have seen work before, and then
Yeah.
we can pivot to that if we need to.
Right. Yeah. Because I think your body also can only handle so much in terms
Mhm.
of supplements and medications
Right.
too.
Right.
Like too much sometimes is not helpful.
So next one was no amount of pills can fix an unhealthy lifestyle. Kind of touched on that one a little bit earlier, but I always kind of make a big point to say, okay, these supplements are supplemental to the other things that I listed at the top. Like we got to eat 3 times a day. We got to get plenty of protein, plenty of fat, plenty of carbs. We got to get good sleep quality. We have to have positive relationships, not toxic relationships. Those things, if you hit those things, the supplements are going to be very much secondary to those.
I think for me, one thing that I would kind of like to say is like, not all providers look at things the way that we do. So, like, that's why we are kind of particular. Like, when we are referring out, I'm very particular about who
Mhm.
I refer out to. Like, I put a lot of time and effort into like vetting
Yes.
who I send my patients to,
Mhm.
because not everybody looks at things the same. Just for instance, like, let's say we suspected mold in your house. I'm not gonna just tell you like, "Oh, yeah, just do a Google search and just have a mold inspector come out," because there are mold inspectors that are looking at the health of the home and the people in it,
Mhm.
and then there's mold inspectors that come out and they just take some air samples and they're like, "Okay, thanks for the $900. I'll see you
Right.
later."
Yeah.
You want someone who's going to actually do a thorough job and listen
Mhm.
to what's going on and look behind walls, or, whatever.
Right.
Same goes for, dentists. Like, if you go to your dentist and you're like, I think they have a tongue tie, or they said to look at airway or whatever. Not all dentists are trained in airway. Not all dentists are trained in tongue ties. Not all pediatricians are trained in tongue ties. Like, so keep that in mind, that like not all providers are experts,
Right.
and they're not willing to say that they're
Mhm.
not an expert.
So if you're gonna come to functional medicine, you gotta think, okay, I'm clearly choosing something different because this provider is different than the average. So same thing goes for dentists and uh, primary care doctors and even rheumatologists, I would say. Some are more open to
Hmm.
more progressive ideas and some are very standard and conventionally trained.
Right. And
So
it's not that we're throwing any of
no.
them under the bus or anything like that. It's just that we're looking for something specific,
Mhm.
and that's why we're sending you there. So when you come back and you're like, oh, they said they're fine. And I'm like, I just don't think that that's the truth.
Right.
Like, then we have to convince you to get a second opinion and go somewhere else. And then that's probably frustrating for you because, well, I already went here. And so that weighs on us too,
Right.
because we care about outcomes. And if you're told something that may not be accurate, that affects the outcome.
And if we're if and until you go to the person that we know thinks the way that we think, we're always gonna wonder in the back of our head, "Ugh, but is there mold?
Right.
But is there an airway issue? But is there lingual restriction?" And if you
Right.
don't go to the one that we know thinks like us, we're gonna be a little bit skeptical
Right.
too,
Yeah. And
especially
then,
if you're stuck.
right. And then, we've spent money and time, and that hurts us because we're
Mhm.
like, oh, now I have to
Mhm.
tell you to go somewhere else. But yeah, so that kind of rolls into like your
Yeah.
wins are my wins and your losses are my
Yep. That's
losses.
the next one. Your wins are our wins, your losses are our losses. This is heavy. I mean, this can kind of roll into some heavy territory. I don't think that we think about the people who serve us, who we pay to do jobs for us, as having emotions,
Hmm.
but we do. We very much do.
Yeah.
So I think patients don't think, like, they'll think maybe they send us this crazy in depth message and we don't respond for 3 days and they think, oh, well, they're just ghosting us. No, I read it and I'm chewing on it and I'm
Hmm.
losing sleep over it. And I'm thinking about my options and I'm researching before I actually respond to it.
Right. Yeah. And that's hard because you don't want them to think that you're not responding, but
Mhm.
also it's like you want to make sure that your response is a good response
Right.
and thorough,
And
you
if
know?
I'm trying to, my personality is that I want all of my inbox items done
Mhm.
before I end my day or I end my week. But if I am going through things and I'm approaching it as I got to get this checked off my list, you're not going to get the same amount of care or the same quality of care as if I'm like, I got to chew on that.
Mhm.
Maybe even wait a week before I
Yeah.
really deal with that.
Yeah.
So,
Or do some research
mhm,
about it or, something like
yeah.
that.
But then also, if you come back and you say, I'm really just not feeling any better and we're not budging, I know how frustrating that is from a patient because it's frustrating for me, for us as providers too. So
Yeah.
just to know, but then on the other side of it, we sure love whenever they get great improvements too. Like the one you were
Mhm.
telling me about, Sarah messaged me the other day and she's like, I had this patient
Mhm.
and she was saying, she came in really, really sick and now she's doing great. And just
Mhm.
how that was just a massive positive in your life
Yeah.
that week.
Yeah, and I think, so when it comes to like provider burnout and stuff like that, like Amy and I, we say there's always these cycles.
Mm-hmm.
Like there's these cycles of like everybody, it seems like everybody's not doing well or everybody has a lull in their, progress and things like that. And that's heavy too. And
Mm-hmm.
then and then that kind of causes the imposter syndrome and all this kind of stuff. And so when we have patients that do have the positives and really kind of like talk about the positives, that's helpful for us
Yes.
too. It
Yeah.
helps us to keep going
Yeah.
and like, okay, yes, we are making a difference. This is good. And so we need those wins too so that we can feel encouraged.
And I'm probably not great at doing this. I should do it more often where you giving positive feedback for people in your life.
Hmm.
Every now and then you'll have the patient who's like, listen, you did something so simple, like start me on basic starting hormones. And my life is so much better now. You
Hmm.
don't always think to make that be a big deal for people, but it feels so good whenever patients say that because you think like that's why I'm doing this.
Right.
This is what's worth all
Right.
of the other stress is because people are doing better because I'm doing what I'm doing.
Right. Yeah. It's
So
just kind of
thank you
like,
when you give when you give positive
yeah,
feedback.
we appreciate it.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's just like kind of how it's like pray for your pastor. A lot of times people forget to pray
Uh-huh.
for your pastor and just all the things that they're carrying,
Yeah.
like because they're pouring into
Mhm.
people. And I think the other thing that a lot of providers are saying, like, I would love for patients to know, like, I'm not just sitting around waiting for messages and that kind of thing. Like, what it looks like, a typical provider day looks like is you get there, you're answering messages, reading labs, responding to things. Then it's back to back to back. You're seeing patients nonstop
Mhm.
until lunch, sometimes working through lunch. And I mean, for functional medicine, at least, we have a patient in front of us for like an hour. So,
Mhm.
like, I'm like,
There's no interrupting. Yeah.
there's no like getting a phone call, there's no answering an email, there's no texting somebody back, like it's just constant.
Mhm.
Um, and so a lot of times it's hard to respond to those messages or even send prescriptions in
Yeah.
sometimes, like you have to kind of do it at the end of the day or, you know,
Yep. And then I see that last patient, and then I have a kid being delivered to me,
right,
or I have to go pick up a kid. So it's not like, well, I should just stay later. That's a unique problem that not everyone has, but
right,
it kind of puts a book into your day because you don't want me doing important things when my kids
right,
asking me questions about, what is this, and I'm hungry and all that.
right. Yeah. And so all that to say, just from that perspective of like, there's a lot that goes on behind the
Mhm.
scenes. So,
Mhm.
um,
And I'll just share this. It's a little bit off the exact statement there, but an example. So I had a patient, actually, it was in my gynecology clinic, who had a breast cancer diagnosis, and I received the biopsy result, and I had to call the patient with that result. And I know that it's going to be one of the worst days of her life for me to call her and tell her that. I don't think people think about the provider's emotions in that, where I'm actually thinking, oh my gosh, I don't want to do this. I don't want to ruin her day. Number two, what time do I call her?
mhm,
Do I call her? What if she's at work?
yeah,
Do I wait till she gets home when she has her kids there?
right.
Should I, the spiraling and how all day long I'm thinking about how I have to call this patient.
Mhm.
And I'm not saying it's about me because it's not about me, it's about her.
Right.
But just kind of like that pray for your pastor thing, you don't think about the heaviness
Mhm.
that of taking care of someone else
Well, and also
necessarily.
it's taking care of their health. It's
Mhm.
big, it's
Mhm.
important. It's not like I mean, yeah, moving money around and doing that kind of thing like I don't know, investors do, whatever. Yes, that's important too, but this is like health, like
Right.
patients' well-being. Like if you
Mhm.
don't make the right move or you make the wrong decision, it's could be
Yeah.
very costly. And so that's where we have to be really careful about our own boundaries and
Mhm.
our own personal um, well-being and stuff too.
Yeah. Yeah. Let's see. What's the next one? There's provider burnout, the part you don't see. So this is just talking about like long visits, deep listening, high degree of analysis, emotional stuff. We kind of hit that one a little bit.
Yeah, I think we hit most of them, but I think, the reality is at the end of the day, the reason why we're saying these is because we really care about what we do
Hmm.
and we enjoy helping
Yeah.
patients. But, again, these could be some of the barriers to healing.
And I also love that we're doing this one because, and we've talked about this, it's a soapbox of mine, but a lot of the things that you see on Instagram and Facebook for ads, it's clickbait.
Hmm.
So there's some company that wants you to either buy this product or sign up for this program or just look at their ad for 60 seconds so that they can sell advertisements. A lot of them paint that if you'll just do this, you'll completely heal.
Right.
And so they make it seem so simple. And I think I even struggled with that. I still do sometimes as a provider, as a functional medicine provider, that well, my patients aren't just getting better like everyone else's
Hmm.
are, when everyone else's probably aren't. There's a lot that goes into it. So I guess what we're doing is we're pulling into the light that you're not doing it wrong and your provider's not doing it wrong if it's not an immediate fix.
Right. Yeah. That's a normal.
Mhm.
Yeah. So, anyways, I hope this was helpful, and I hope that kind of shed some light on the experience. And if you're a provider and you're listening and you're like, yes, 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 thank you. Um,
Give us some feedback. We need solidarity here.
yes, you can send it to your patients. You're welcome. um, but if you have any questions, comments, just link it below, and we'll link everything in the show notes. Till next time.
See ya.